One, we're rolling. What's going on?
Hey, good, good. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
No, you know what? It's awesome, that we were able to connect with one another, and you have a pretty important topic to discuss today, and we want to hear it. And but let's get to know you first and your
Yeah.
background.
So I have an educational background in finance. I was a financial analyst for a little bit. Last employment was with AT&T, and I just got that entrepreneurial bug, always trying to solve problems. And that's all I really think entrepreneurs are mission driven people just trying to solve different problems. And I'm always kind of trying to do that. So I became a serial entrepreneur, always trying to different startups. Along the way, I had an inspirational apparel brand. Um, which actually evolved for me to starting a nonprofit for mental health and suicide prevention.
Oh,
Because
nice.
every time you talk something inspirational, motivational, always goes to, mental health. And
Yeah.
so people would mention, suicidal tendencies. And because I have an experience of losing my brother to suicide, it obviously comes up. And I realized that things that I would advise people help them out. And so it became more and more. And then after a while, I just really got into what's going on with mental health and suicide prevention. And people are just being taught the wrong things, you
Hmm.
know, and, they don't realize that, suicidal tendencies or suicide prevention is just completely different. I mean, we're not doing prevention, we're doing a reaction. And so,
Hmm.
anyway, and that's why I'm here talking to you now and just spread the knowledge about what we're doing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's mental health it's becoming more and more common.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it's like for doctors where you're at, but where I'm from, it's we kind of have it here, but like the doctors, but there's not enough.
Yeah.
You know what?
So
There's not enough.
it, it's not that it's not enough. It's we're being taught the wrong things. We have more access to freaking information and help all day, every day. So when people say like, where can we reach out to, for help? It's like, it's called the internet. You'll find millions of links. I mean, you can access it by your phone. So it's not the access to help that's the problem because there's so many organizations, right?
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then what the hell are we doing wrong? Well, because we're doing things in reverse, just like what we're finding out with physical health. There's three major things that I always tell people. That I'm hoping that your listeners go away from, or at least learn. I mean, number one, in order to prevent any problems, whether it's personal, business, really any problems, um, you have to be proactive. And it another thing is that when you're trying to fix something, especially with mental health,
Mhm.
you got to stop trying to remedy the result. You have to remedy the cause. Because if you remedy the result and the cause is still there, well, what the hell do you think is going to happen? It's still there. It's going to
Yeah.
keep happening, right? And number three is what society has done. We have to get rid of this idea that the result is the cause. There's a lot of people walking around that are depressed and they think it's because they have depression. Doesn't make any sense at all. So those are the three major things, and I'll go, obviously deeper into those things and explain to you probably, what we're doing with the nonprofit.
Yeah. You know what? Even like you say that now, the word anxiety is
Yeah,
getting thrown around so much, especially with kids. Not even teenagers, kids.
yeah. Oh,
Like
it's nonsense.
they shouldn't even know what that means. Like a 7 or 8 year
Yeah,
old should not know what that. You know what I mean? Like unless
yeah.
there is something there. Like and I think it comes from a parent self-diagnosing.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than
It,
here's what's
it's
taken to a pediatrician or a doctor. No, here's what's really going on.
right, right, and that's so again, like you're saying, anxiety, right? Anxiety is just the result. It's not the cause. But everyone thinks, oh my God, I'm feeling anxious because I have anxiety. I- Just to let your listeners know,
Yeah.
the reason I'm happy is because I have happiness.
Hmm.
Does that sound good to you? Or does that sound idiotic to you? Well,
No,
that's
no, I
exactly.
I get what you're saying.
No, but do you see what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense when I say it that way, right? But
No,
we're talking about two emotions. We're talking about depression and anxiety. That's it. But there's so many other emotions. You're telling me you're feeling envious because of your envy? You're feeling fear because, or you're feeling afraid because of your fear. Like, does that make any sense to you? So what's going on here is because the result is not supposed to be the cause, and when you're being taught this, it's all it is a never ending loop of nothing. That's why you can't get rid of it. It's
you
like, how, what do you mean get rid of a, you're trying to get rid of our natural reaction. It's a temporary and natural reaction. It's
you
an
know,
emotional response,
yeah. So
right?
you talk about result and cause. What's the difference between the? You know what I mean? How do you separate the? How do you get into it and pinpoint it?
Every effect has a cause. Every, not some, not every single one, all of them. So if this is the effect, well, what caused it? There's always has to be something else. There's a cause and then there's an effect. What people don't understand is what to look for. They keep thinking causes are nouns, and it's not. It's a verb, it's an action, it's something that's happening. And so that's a big difference. A cause is a verb and an effect is a noun. It's the result. And so when you talk about anxiety, that's just a result. I need to know, well, what happened?
Hmm.
What gave you that anxiety,
Yes. How
right?
did you get that? Yeah, that's what I'm trying. How do you get there to know what gave it to you? What happened?
Yeah. It always comes down to perspectives. And that's what I've learned. It always comes down to perspectives. Because if you look at every guru that you have or every guru that you know, it's really all about their perspective. They don't eat a magic pill, man. They don't
Well, and that was
eat
going to
a,
be my next thing. Like, what's your thoughts on like the medications that are just being pumped out there to people that are misdiagnosed? It's mental
yeah.
illness, but really, it's
It,
something else going on. You know,
it's not even misdiagnosed. It's like it's 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 the only remedy they know. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Because you're
Yeah.
not looking at the cause. Well, obviously, that's the easiest route. So when it comes to pills, it doesn't make any sense to me because that's like all it is a reaction, right? But that's not the only way. There's so many things you can do before you even do that. So everything that I discussed with you today is all about prevention. By the
Okay.
time you need pills, that's like hardcore reaction, right?
Yeah.
That's where doctors come in, right? Because same thing with your physical health. When's the last time you went to your doctor and asked for a diet, like
Never.
suggestions? Right,
Never.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
You
not
know.
what they don't know prevention. What they know is like, oh, you have diabetes. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like boop 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 boop. But you're not diabetic yet. So that's the way they treat it, right? And that's what I
Mhm.
mean. People are waiting for symptoms, waiting for all these things, and it doesn't make any sense to me. So um, if we keep waiting for symptoms, it's not going to do anything. And that's what I mean about like it. Being proactive is necessary, and proactivity is not only great for prevention; it's great for prediction. Because I can tell you right now, if you beat the crap out of a kid from 5 year old to 18 years old, you're going to have a mess, right?
Yeah.
This kid's going to be messed up. But
Yeah.
if you love him
Absolutely.
up, give him discipline, all this stuff, I have a pretty good prediction that your kid's going to be all right.
Hmm.
So it's the same thing with your physical health. If your diet is you're eating well, I'm going to predict you're not going to get diabetes, right? If
Hmm.
you're eating a lot of sugar, I can kind of predict what's going to
Or,
happen
or
to you
or
like
drinking a
pretty
lot of
quickly.
energy drinks. I'm guilty for it, right?
Yeah, right. And the thing is, you all know, right?
Mhm.
And so that's what's really happening. So, and I think that's the problem that we have. It's a major issue. It's because not that everyone has this mental health problem. It's because what they're being taught about their emotion.
Mhm.
It's normal. I'm almost 50 and I don't know when depression became abnormal.
Oh, really? You're almost 50?
Yeah.
I thought you were like early 40s.
Hey, that's my man right there. That's
No,
right.
really, I did. I
That's
was like,
right.
whoa, wow.
Thanks, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
50 on February 1st, man.
Oh, wow, just around the
Yeah.
corner.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. So
Yeah.
But
Yes.
let me tell you, what would probably help is I kind of just give you a gist of like what Start Day One is doing. That's the nonprofit that I have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let's jump back. I know we kind of fly all over the place, but you know,
Yeah.
it'll all
Yup.
connect.
Yeah. So this is what I tell people. When I lost my brother to suicide, that's when I really learned, like, you know what? Depression and anxiety is just like happiness. They're not the cause. They're just a natural and temporary emotional responses based on our perspectives. It's not our situations. I tell people that's why rock stars commit suicide, while the homeless are the ones struggling to stay alive. That doesn't make sense, right? But
Mhm.
it's happening all day, every day. Everyone that's listening right now knows to live life to the fullest. Who the hell doesn't? But we
Yep.
still complain about Mondays,
Yep.
traffic,
Whether.
weather. Like, yeah, don't tell me these most motivational speakers don't do that. Now they're not being human, right? It's
Mhm.
human nature to take life for granted. It is the law of supply and demand. There's a reason why they call it a law. There's no way out of it. It's just the law that happens. Too much supply of something, the value of things go down, right? That's why you have
Yep.
spoiled kids because they have too much money, things like that. So that's the law of supply and demand. Anyway, sometimes we're inspired though to be more hopeful when we hear like a great story, appreciate life more when someone passes away, right?
Mhm.
But that's always temporary. That sense of inspiration always kind of dissipates. And the most important thing is because they're all meaningless unless you make a decision. So I've talked to like thousands of people by now. I learned that the negative perspective, that's what evolves into anxiety, depression, drug abuse, and then eventually suicidal tendencies, but it tends to be the same cause. It just kind of evolves, right? You can add on to it, things like that. Obviously, if you succeed with suicide, that's the end. But you can go back and forth until you get rid of it. But anyway, everyone's being taught to keep waiting for symptoms of depression or anxiety, and we're being told that you're depressed because you have depression. Like I said, it doesn't make any sense when I say I'm happy because I have happiness there. Like, how come you can't admit to that? So it doesn't make any sense. It's impossible to prevent problems without being proactive. An example is you can't prevent cavities if
Yep.
you don't proactively brush your teeth,
Teeth. Yeah.
right? You can't prevent diabetes either if
Mhm.
you proactively don't, eat a healthy diet.
Or drink
And
energy drinks
so,
every day.
yeah, right, exactly. And you know this, so
Yeah.
there's no one that doesn't know this.
And you know
And
what? The thing is, I was a personal trainer for years, and I know right
yeah,
from wrong. I got to kick the habit, right?
yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like, hey, you do you, but don't just
Don't
be
preach to somebody else.
surprised.
Yeah.
No, it's not even don't preach to anyone else. Like, just don't be surprised. Oh my God, I have diabetes. Like, well,
Exactly. Right. I
well,
know.
that's what
Like, you know,
that's what
I
you're
know what it
feeding
can do.
yourself.
Yep.
Right.
Uh,
Well, it's the same thing in mental health, mental and physical health. Right. It's easier when I discuss physical health. It's easier for people to understand. It's easier to see if the physical health, how it changes you, and all that stuff. The mental is kind of, it's harder. It's more transparent, so it's tough to see. So, you know, people really need to understand that you have to stop, like waiting for symptoms. I've been
mhm.
asked before, like, so you don't look for symptoms of depression? I'm like, do you wait for symptoms of cavities before you brush your teeth?
No,
Like,
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
right? Imagine, like, don't brush your teeth until you start feeling a little bit of pain. Then brush, okay? It
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense. And look what they do with suicide prevention. Call this number, Justin, when you're suicidal. Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I don't
Yeah.
even see a rope, but come
Yeah.
on. Maybe next week, but not this week. Okay. So when
Mhm.
you're there, call me up. Okay. That's not prevention, right? Stop
Mhm.
waiting for people to become suicidal. What we need to do is be more proactive. And that's what's really beneficial. And you can't solve any problems before you make a decision. And being accountable and making decisions is the only way to find the solutions. That's what allows you to quit the job you hate, let go of past trauma, start a podcast like you're doing, go on vacation, things like that. The problem is we keep taking away accountability from people, you know?
And you're right. Like I had a fly fishing podcast before, and I kind of get out of it, and it just I don't know if I'm bored or what. Like, what I need to do something with my time is like, you know what? I want to do a podcast that educates people, educates
Yeah,
myself,
yeah,
covers not one thing in particular, but everything,
yeah.
and then
But
I was
yeah,
fortunate to meet you to educate us and my listeners that are listening, right?
yeah, and the biggest thing that we're trying to do when you're doing these things is really you're trying to shift people's perspectives. Because what I've done is kind of reverse engineer, right? If we're a product of our decisions, then what makes us do those decisions, right?
Yeah.
So I started getting deeper and deeper into it, tried to reverse engineer, and I realized that it was just really the perspectives. There's things that happen in our lives that kind of it's constantly shifting, right?
Hmm.
But the major shifts is inspiration to positively shift, right?
Hmm.
And then there's trauma that negatively shifts your perspective. So those two things are constantly at battle, right? For people that have depression right now, they have this idea that happy people are permanently happy and that's what they want to be. It's like it, that's your goal, is to never feel depressed again, and when they feel it's like, oh, see, I never got rid of it.
Yeah.
Like,
And they just give up
you're
on everything.
no, that's crazy
Yeah.
talk. That is crazy talk. That's like trying to get rid of anger.
Yep.
That's like trying to get rid of envy. That's trying get rid of an emotion. Do you understand? It's an emotional response. The question is, what are you responding to? And that the problem is how you're responding to it,
Hmm.
right? That's all it really is. But we're being taught a completely different thing that, Justin, you have a mental illness. That's probably one of the worst things that we've ever done with mental health is calling it mental illness. We're in this, what I call like a coddle culture.
Hmm.
I don't want Justin to feel bad. So, hey guys, it's a mental illness, all right? From now on, it's a mental illness. So that Justin doesn't feel bad over here. That Justin, there's nothing you can do about it. It's a mental illness. It's not you.
No, and it's a word too that I find I don't like using. Like, if someone does have it, you know, I don't like saying the word like, "Oh, this person's mentally ill."
Yeah.
It's almost like they
It,
should be. It's almost make like they should be ashamed of.
and
You know what I mean?
no, the problem with that, seriously, is because you're they think that's making you feel better. And it's not. It's making you feel better because you have a negative mindset. It's like, ah, thank you. You just gave them more excuses. Actually, you gave them the best excuse. The best excuse to say, oh, it's not my fault. Oh, it's not me. Yes. There's people that are stoked that they're diagnosed with depression. Like, oh,
Really?
yes. Like they're just like, oh, finally. Like, oh, I have this diagnosis now, PTSD and I'm like, that's weird. It's like no one celebrates getting cancer and then saying like, oh, finally, now I know what's wrong with me. Like I get to know what's wrong with you is important, but
Yeah.
this idea that the mental illness, the problem is it was meant to help people feel better, but it's an internal problem, not an outside problem. Um, when you do something like that, you now go from struggling with depression to suffering. That's why when people say, like, there's a big difference with struggling. A marathon of someone struggles for the finish line, but they're not suffering, right? It's
Hmm.
something they are trying to do. It's very difficult. Or someone trying to do a startup. It's very difficult. It's all about fulfillment. That it's not happiness. Happiness is also temporary. So for people to think that people that are not depressed, that is always happy, that is just crazy, right? It's completely crazy. And so when you tell someone there's nothing you can do about it, and I start calling it a mental illness, well, what people don't understand is when I take away your accountability, I also took away your hope because I just told you there's nothing you could do about it, Justin. But the hope comes from where? I have a magic pill that does it. I have this thing. And the thing is, that wasn't the cause. So it's kind of like you getting diabetes, right?
Hmm.
I'm not saying don't take insulin when it's time, but that's not the cause. If you're still going nuts on your energy drinks, well, I don't know what to tell you, Justin, but you're not
No,
necessarily getting rid of the cause, you
cause
know?
no, no,
So so when you talk about pills and stuff, I'm not against them. I'm just saying like that's great for a reaction when you're like completely shot and you're there.
mhm,
Again, I'm talking about prevention. I don't need to be a nutritionist to tell Justin like, hey, you might want to slow down on those energy drinks.
yeah,
The same way, I don't need to be a dentist to tell kids like, hey, make sure you brush your teeth every night, uh,
mhm,
uh, right? It's all prevention. So, and that's all I'm really bringing to the table is because it's almost like everything else. I'm bringing back common sense, you know, and
mhm.
it's disappearing like fast. So,
Do you think, like, because there's so much out there, and then there's a lot of false information out there too with the internet, like, people will look up something, "Well, I have this," and, "Oh my god, I have that." And really a guy who or a person who wrote the article, someone that's in their mom's basement and publish it and
yeah. So that's also another thing. There's this placebo nocebo effect. So there's been these studies where it shows that fake therapists can actually be as effective, right?
Mhm,
Um, it, it was really like to have someone really hear you, listen to you, have empathy, all this stuff. That's actually what really helps people. And the nocebo effect is the negative effects, right? Um, just this knowledge, and that's why when we shift people's perspective as they're listening to what I'm saying, I'm just hoping everything that I'm mentioning to them makes sense, so that they realize, like, just like what we've been talking about already, that the result is not the cause. I'm hoping people can understand like the difference with that, and then they go, "Man, what am I doing?" Like, you're not handling the cause. Just so that general knowledge alone is what helps you. So when it comes to the placebo effect, when I tell people like, dude, this is really what's happening. If doctors just said that, um, it would be easier for people to deal with this mental health issue they call. Really, it's just like it's just feeling better, right? Just balancing your life back to normal. Um, and I think it's really messed up, like what we're trying to do or what we're doing. Like, how many people are on antidepressants? Like, that's never been the case. How can we have this much information and
mhm.
not have anything better? Suicide rates are going up, mental health issues are on a rise. We have to go and ask ourselves, why is that? Like, why is that?
And there's people out there that, I'm trying to figure out how to word this,
Yeah.
that had mental illness, never got diagnosed with it, they're living
Mhm.
on the streets, it's and this just to see them out there, but then you have someone who doesn't have it, who you know what I mean, thinks they have it and can get all the help in the world, right?
So for me, what it does is it escalates, right? I mean, there's so many things that's causing it, And but the thing is that we keep trying to look and remedy the results. For example, drug abuse, opioid crisis, all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, those are just results.
Mhm,
People don't need help because they have addiction or they have suicidal tendencies. They need help. That's why they have an addiction or have suicidal tendencies. Do you see the difference? It's like, so when you see these drug abusers, it's not the drugs, it's not the alcohol, it's not because, dude, I don't know about you, but I go out for drinks. Do you have a
mhm,
problem? Do I have? Because if that's the cause, then everyone's got a problem that even touches it, right?
mhm.
So are we risking ourselves and saying like, oh no, this is the cause, so I'm going to be an alcoholic soon? Um, that's not what it is, and we all know that. But we still have this idea that like, oh, that's the problem. And really, we have to like shift this perspective on mental health itself, and we're doing it all wrong. It's completely wrong. And when we are talking about this addiction, for example, well, for anyone that's going like, well, alcohol, it really does. Like, I get that you can get addicted to it. I get that, but it's more a
Mhm.
mental thing, not a physical thing.
You're absolutely
Even
right.
though it's hard to quit, like
Mhm.
cigarettes, because it's a
It
habitual or whatever. Um, but
it's a
my point
habit,
is,
like, it's
yeah,
gotta have
well,
that drink or I gotta have that, and then it's like, "Okay, I had one last night, I had one tonight."
right. And
But
the thing is,
I
I
don't
guess
want
my
one, but
point
then
with
up
that,
here starts clicking like, "No, you have to go have that." Like, this is your routine now. You have to, you know?
yeah, not only that, it's just a problem. It's more a coping mechanism because they're trying to numb the pain, and that's what I believe that I'm seeing, because anyone that thinks it's still the issue is the alcohol itself or the drugs itself, well, then you gotta explain to me the gambling addiction. Like, what did they eat? Did they eat the cards and they got
Mhm.
addicted to poker? Is that what you're telling me? Because nothing went in their system, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's that constant use of cortisol. Sometimes we can get addicted to cortisol. It's that fight or flight, response. It's a stress response, basically. And so these things is really what we need to be dealing with. And and that's not what we're doing. I mean, it's everything we're being taught is just so wrong. Like, especially like the even like concepts, right? Like, for example, I'm going to ask you this, Justin. So,
Okay.
does money buy happiness?
No, I
Okay,
don't think
so
it does.
that's okay. So that's where we are definitely going to disagree. So for me, money absolutely does buy happiness. Our problem, Justin, is that you are under the impression that happiness is permanent. But if I gave you $1 million today, pretty sure you might be stoked. Like,
What?
but is it going
I
to be permanently happy? I
No.
don't know.
I don't
Right.
think,
I don't, that's the part
to
I don't know about.
but
But
to me
it
that
does
then
buy
it
you
would be the
happiness.
but to me then the pressure is I'm gonna have all these people coming around me now. Now I have
That's
to.
the first thought in your head if I gave you $1 million today.
Yes, and
The
it's not that I'm
first
being.
thought.
Yes, it's not that I'm being greedy or don't wanna share it. It's just
So you're not going to be happy if I gave you $1 million right now.
I'm happy right now. Like, if I had $2 million, my
Happier?
uh, there,
You're
you know,
telling me you wouldn't be happier if I gave you a
no,
million
I
dollars
know,
right
I know it
now.
sounds crazy, but it's just
You
that's the way
can
I.
completely expand your podcast. You can have a, I mean, there,
But
so you're
I'd
looking
sooner
at
work
it.
for it. I'd sooner work to build it, learn my bumps along the way, learn my mistakes,
Oh, we
rather than
all
say,
want to do that.
and rather, you
I
know what I mean?
get that.
Say, here's $1 million. Okay, take $20,000, build me a studio, fly guests in. No, I'd sooner just build it myself and work my way there. And
Yeah. So those are all like, I get, but if you think that you're not going to be happier by having $1 million today, um,
oh, I'm not saying I wouldn't be happier. I would, but
that's
then
what I
like,
mean.
yeah,
It's like, it
yeah,
makes anyone happier. Maybe if you're freaking a billionaire and I give you $1 million, that's like $1 for you. Like, it's not gonna really affect you significantly. But my point is that people have to understand that happiness is temporary. See, you think happiness is permanent. That's why when you're looking at it like $1 million, am I permanently happy? Like, I didn't. I said, are you going to be happy? And it does, but it's not going to be forever,
no,
right?
absolutely not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But money does absolutely buy happiness. I know you'll be happier if I give you $1 million.
Oh, absolutely.
Guaranteed. It's not
Oh,
a
yeah.
maybe. It's
I'll be
not a
happier, but
maybe.
then I look at the long terms. Okay, I got all this money now.
Right?
I'll start spending. Start now. It's gone.
Well, see, that's now a mental issue that we need to work on, because you're just talking about the negative aspects of it rather than the positive aspects of like, oh my God, $1 million. You know how many people I can help with that? I can increase my podcast and reach more people and help them and talk about what Ricardo just said and change people's perspectives to actually prevent suicide. See, you're thinking about me, because you lack that sense of purpose, because you're not focusing on purpose, you're focusing on you, and that
Okay.
doesn't help. So that's one of the major things that people need to understand also, is that the best way to kind of talk about this is when people are feeling lost. Justin, when you are driving and you get lost, what do you do?
Pull over, get the GPS out, and find my way home.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But I'm pretty sure there's a destination on there, right?
Oh
So when
yeah.
people are lost, my first question is, Where the hell are you going? Wait, you don't know where you're going? Well, of course you're lost. I don't understand. Like, you'll always be lost. Left, right, backwards, forward. Like, where are you going? You don't know. You need to pull over, like Justin just said. So obviously, we're talking metaphorically here. In
Mhm.
your life, step aside, really think about where you're trying to go. What is your destination? Who you're trying to be, basically.
Mhm.
What version of your future self do you want to be? Without that, it's very difficult to understand what you're going to do today because you don't know where you're going. Now, when you're driving, once you find out where you're going, you go, ah, sometimes you're going to go, oh my God, I missed the turn 5 years ago. But at least you know where you're going. It may
Mhm.
take you longer to get there, but at least now you know where you're going. So when it comes to your life, obviously,
Oh,
when you take the time and you figure it out, now at least you know how to get there. Just like in driving situation, there's going to be obstacles. There's going to be traffic, accidents, detours. That path you wanted, sorry, building a bridge, they're working on it. Guess what? Detour. One of the things my brother has told me that stuck with me, he said, don't worry, when you get lost, all roads are connected. And same thing with your life. Somehow you can get there. I don't know where that is, but when you make that decision to get there and have that purpose, it'll get you there. So purpose is the why are you going to that destination. But in any case, once you know where you're going, then it's easier to navigate and know left, right, forward, where you're going to go. It's not going to be completely perfect. The directions, right, or the
mhm.
route, your path. Things can happen at any time. But that's the same thing with life. But it's how you deal with those things, and purpose is what allows you to kind of persevere through, the journey, basically.
Yeah,
And
you're basically you're trying to figure out you're on this road, or you're on this path, and you're trying to figure out, and you're still on it, and you don't know. Pull over,
yeah,
take a
yeah,
breather, reassess everything.
right. And then once you know how to get there, now you finally know how to get there, right? And
Mhm.
so that's what people need to understand it. So I'm trying to shift people's perspective and understanding, like, dude, let me tell you what's like just the common sense thing to do on here. So when it comes to purpose, so really it comes down to purpose and then perspective, right? Because how are you going to know perspective is just the way you look at things, right? Um, but how are you going to know what's a threat or a benefit without your purpose? So purpose is very important. A lot of people pretty much understand that, right? They're when
Yeah.
they don't feel they feel like they lack purpose and stuff like that. People can feel that. But the problem is people are being told that they have to find their purpose. That's actually wrong. You have to create your purpose, just like a mission is like a purpose for businesses. You don't just kind of find that; you have to create it for that brand or company, and it can always change, right?
Mhm.
And there's different purposes. There's no one life purpose. I mean, you can have a generic, kind of purpose, not generic, but like a general purpose. But you have a purpose as a father, you have a purpose as a podcaster, you have a purpose. So there's different purposes. It just depends what that is. Um, so there's two major characteristics that I learned when you're trying to create a purpose. And then number one, it must benefit and provide value to other people, not ourselves. And number two, it must be a verb, an action. So, for example, my apparel brand was to inspire and motivate people to make the decision to live life without regret and accept challenges worth the risk. Tell me, Justin, when does
Mhm.
that stop? Does it? There's no ending to that. If all I have to do, so with Justin, for example, if his purpose and mission with his podcast is to help inspire people who might be dealing with something that resonates with them through my guests, and I'm hoping to help them out, when does that stop? And when how many people needs to be listening for that to be uh, fulfilled? There could be one. There
Mhm.
could be 10,000. Doesn't freaking matter. And the thing is, now what happens is I've just shifted Justin's mindset about his podcast, because if he was really all about his purpose, he doesn't care how many likes he gets. He doesn't care how many audiences listening. He's just hoping, man, I hope really help that one dude or who or girl, whoever is listening right now. And
Mhm.
so that becomes a different story because now your focus is not on yourself. And a lot of times that's where people get into trouble, right? Because the focus is on themselves rather than like,
Mhm.
what can I provide people? What can I do for people? And one of the ways to help you figure out your purpose is these two questions. How would you like to help a specific group of people? How do you want to help them? And then why should we help these certain people? And that's how you kind of come up with your sense of purpose. And a lot of times, it's so when you have a purpose, it's always just like a mission for businesses, right?
Yep.
It's to verb, to some kind of action, to empower, to help, to inspire, to motivate. Those things is a purpose, or at least the beginning of a purpose. Just to let people understand, I relate a lot of things from this startup world to mental health. It's like Airbnb mission was their mission was to help people belong, right?
Mhm.
Not a noun in, in saying we want to be the best rental place because that's finite. They are one of the best rental places now. Now what? So it ends when people say, my purpose is to be a rock star or writer. Okay, you're a writer now. It's ended. Your purpose now, you have no purpose again, and it's because it's wrong. It's not the right purpose. A purpose is supposed to be a verb. If you said you want to be a rock star, that's a noun. That's not going to work. But if you said that your purpose is to inspire people with your music through your experiences that hopefully makes them feel better, that's never ending. You can, that's 50 million songs. And it doesn't have to be songs. It doesn't even have to be your songs. You could be a producer helping other people do their songs to accomplish that, to fulfill that. And so that's why it's never ending. The purpose remains. And that's what gives you that perseverance because purpose doesn't care about pain or pleasure, right? It just
Mhm.
keeps on going. It gives you a future mindset rather than this idea that this version of Justin is the final version we're going to see. Like, dude, 5 years ago, Justin is not this. And 5 years from now, it's definitely not going to be this.
Mhm.
Especially when he intentionally goes, no, I want to be this type of person in 5 years. Now we're really talking because we're always being taught these like bad advice. Like live in the present, Justin. Like, dude, you
Mhm.
know how many people got in trouble with that? Do you know why they're happier when they just live in the present? It's because you're making them forget anything else that's happening. I get it. But as soon as you have to come back to reality, guess what? You're stressed out again. Oh, crap. That's right. Bills. Oh, work. Oh, kids. Like, that's not correct. So it's really, to me, a harmony of all three, the past, present, and future. The future is meant to guide you because you need to know the future version of yourself that you want to be, right? How are you going to know the steps? The past, you're supposed to learn from that. What happened in the past? Well, you got to learn from that. And the present, the beautiful thing about it is that this is when you execute based on where you're going and what you've learned. And as the as Justin is trying to be his future version 5 years from now, guess what? In a year, the 5 year version shifted 6 years from now, right? Every
Mhm.
five. So it's constantly moving forward. So you have to have the future guide, learn from the past. And every time there's a year, now that's new things that you learned from. And so this idea is what people need to understand. It's just like physical health. You're not in shape and then awesome, I'm in shape forever.
Yeah,
Hey,
right,
I
I
can
know.
now have all the Red Bull I want. Like, whoo,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah, it doesn't
good
work like that,
thing.
though.
Exactly. People that are in shape, there's a reason they're in shape. They're constantly doing something. Well, it's the same thing with your mental health. Like for people that are depressed, well, what have you been doing the past month? Let's write that shit down. Let me see what you did. Let me see what you really did. Like really did. Let's be honest though. What were you
Mhm.
thinking about this whole time? Are you thinking about all the negative aspects of life? Were you trying to do this? What have you tried? And most of the time we're going to say like, dude, you're not even trying, but you expect a different result. That that's weird.
You see a lot of, but you see a lot of that though, like, "Oh, I wanna do this, I'm trying, but" like me and I seen you, and it's the same spot on the couch for the last 4 days, like,
Right. Well,
you
that's
know.
like me going like, dude, I'm trying to be jacked. I did 10 push-ups. That didn't work.
Yeah. No, right? I know.
You just did 10 push-ups? Wait, once?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, for a week. Like,
Yeah.
well,
Mm,
uh,
keep
you,
going.
you kind of have to keep going again,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we really have to um erase, and the things that we're telling people, like purpose is definitely very important. So that's your why. The idea of providing value to others, it really shifts everything. It changes your mind and how you see things. um when it comes to perspective, the reason I always refer to perspectives, because that's really all you need to change. Look at every guru that you've ever known, any motivational speaker that you look up to, anyone that's done a drastic a change in their life. It's just a perspective that shifted. That is it. um, and that's all you need to really understand. So once you know that, like, oh, then anything's that's where it starts. So it's all about the decision. It
Mhm.
always starts with a decision, no matter what you say or do. Like, that's where it starts, and that's what we need to work on. The problem is we keep telling people not to be accountable for it. They have to make a decision. And the reason I know it's all about accountability, I'll have to tell you two different stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, so number one, I was talking, right? I had my inspirational brand clothing company. I was talking to them, and this kid approaches me and he goes, dude, I like that you're saying, that it all starts with a decision, but it's not that easy. And I said, yeah, I never said it was easy, but that's where it starts. He goes, yeah, but I'm in rehab now and blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, that doesn't matter. It always starts with a decision. And he goes, yeah, but, and I was so sick of hearing it. So I said, dude, stop saying but. It always starts with a decision. Now tell me why you can't do that. I backed up.
Mhm.
Well, this kid is now looking in a ceiling and going like this. And I'm going, what is this kid doing? This is weird. But what he's doing is he's looking through his databases of excuses. Which one can I tell this guy? Nope, that's not it. Nope. And he goes, yeah, almost said
God.
but only because I told him, stop saying but and tell me why, right? So he
Mhm.
went, yeah. And then he goes, you're right. You're right. I go, yeah, I know. You're welcome. He went to rehab and hasn't even decided to get better. He was testing them or whatever he's doing, but he'd never decided to get better. He kept looking at excuses. Why
Mhm.
he's not supposed to do this and that. And, because when we're in a bad place, we tend to love excuses. And that's the way it is. We all do
Yep.
it. I do it. Every guru does it also. So, anyway, that same exact story. I was at a completely different event and I told this lady that. Well, she got really upset and she said, it's different for some people. I go, no, no, it always starts with a decision. No, no. I mean, I'm talking pissed off and
Y
left. And I was like, that's weird. Am I saying something completely out of, is it offensive? I don't understand what, all I'm saying is that, is it harmful when I say that it starts with a decision, Justin? Like, it just starts with a decision, right?
Yeah, it
Nothing,
did.
of- nothing harmful, right?
No.
So obviously, I have to analyze though. Like, why would someone? Oh my God, got it. So this is why. This is when I really realized that it was about accountability. Because as soon as someone like her agrees with me, that's also as soon as they have to let go of their excuses. And all I'm asking you is to make the decision to get better. There's nothing difficult, not that's not difficult, but that's
Mhm.
where it starts. But they want to hold on to the excuse. You're telling me my present situation was my fault? It wasn't my dad who beat me, this, that. Like, well, that was 30 years ago. Uh, so a cause should be happening right now. The cause, again, let's go back to it, is a verb. What
Mhm.
is happening right now? Because it's not your dad. That's a noun. A cause can't be a noun. So it's not your dad. Oh, I went through trauma. It's also not trauma. Problem is how you're dealing with that trauma today. What is happening today that's hurting you? Obviously, it's you. So when people that are in pain, it's almost like someone putting a hammer to their face and they're going, I'm in pain. Well, stop doing that. Like
Yeah.
you're doing it. It's not your dad anymore. It's yeah, they did that, but it's how you're dealing with it, not dealt. Because when you say something past tense, it's over, it's done. But it's still happening today. What is it that you're doing? What are you thinking about? What's your thought pattern? It always comes down to like, what's your perspective on what happened? Because when someone tells me, it's like, oh, it's my dad. That's the problem. It's like, well, we all have, well, not all, we have, a lot of us have dads. So I don't understand what you mean. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, oh, that's what you did. Like, okay, so people that's gone through abuse, is it permanent that, so no one ever gets better? Or there's some people that did? Okay, shouldn't we be looking at what they did? Like, how did they get out of that then? Because people are under this notion that it's permanent now, like as if because they're trying to get rid of this emotion. And if they ever feel that thing again based on the trauma or when they think about it, it's like, oh, for example, I was talking to this one guy about anxiety. He goes, bro, I take pills for anxiety. And I go, okay, well, what makes you anxious? He goes, when I'm driving in a car. Okay, okay. A lot of us drive in a car. What is making you anxious? He said, well, when I get in the car, I just think that I'm gonna hurt myself or hurt other people when I'm driving around. I go, we're getting somewhere. Let me get this straight, Justin. You're telling me that when you go in a car, you think you're gonna hurt yourself
Sell for
and
somebody.
other
Yeah.
people. That will make anyone anxious. And
Mhm.
once you do that, you're gonna be or have anxiety. It's not I have anxiety. Oh man, I'm gonna think people are going to get hurt. Well, now I'm sorry. I'm anxious, and now people are gonna get hurt. It's It's reversed. I think people are gonna get hurt, and I'm gonna hurt other people. Now you're anxious. Well, obviously now you have anxiety, and that's what's happening. And he goes, "You're right." So now he's understanding. It's like, it's just the way you're responding. And what are you responding to? You have to ask yourself that. What is bringing you there? And so when you start thinking about that, it's like, oh, yeah, you're doing it. No one else. Not your dad, not the trauma. It's how you're dealing with that trauma today. It's how you're dealing with something that happened in the past today. And when you tell people there's nothing they can do about it, well, that's obviously not going to work. You need to shift people's perspectives about that stuff. And perspective is really, um, it's really the main purpose. That's what, with books that you read, it's meant to shift your perspective on the topic. Again,
Do
you
you
don't
do
eat
you
the
have any
book.
books? Did you publish any books?
No, so one of the things I'm working on now, I've actually, because of what we're discussing every time, right? Like, I'm actually trying to put together something. So I came up with my own framework on helping people because I think we're doing things wrong, right? Like I said. So I came up with the evolution cycle framework. The reason I call it evolution, it's all about evolution, but I want you to remember the 4 E's. So number one is envision. Number two is execute. Number three is evaluate. And number four is evolve. So the reason for that is you need to start with envision, right? And it's a constant cycle. The reason for the framework is to understand that it's not a linear thing. Once you're good forever. It's a constant thing, just like working out. Like if you want to
Mhm.
stay in shape, you have to constantly keep working out and doing things to be healthier and all this stuff, right? Well, same thing with your mindset. It's a constant thing you have to keep doing. So what I've done is I created something from my experience in startups. I just the way we're doing things with the startups is very relatable to what we can do for our mental health. So I just basically applied the general principles of it. So the first step is envision. Just like a startup needs to know who they're going to be, what they're going to do. If they don't know that, how do you think they're going to run a business? They
Mhm.
won't. You really have to figure out who you're trying to be. Like, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Obviously, it's always good to know more in advance, but sometimes it's a little too far. Just like in business, you can't go too far. You can't go 10 years. That's way too late. That's a lot of changes. Like just 4 years ago, there was no AI. You know what I'm saying? There's a
Yeah.
lot of changes.
Oh, yeah.
So so you
Major
really have to
changes.
envision. Yeah. So envisioning is very important because you need to see a future version of yourself you're trying to achieve. And that's what the goal is. You're always trying to be a better future version of yourself. Without that, you're not going to know what to do today. So for me, that allows me to reverse engineer what I'm going to do today, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
envisioning this. Well, if Justin is envisioning having a major podcast and really helping a lot of people, reverse engineer that, what does he have to do? Well, he's got to talk to people like me. He's got to be consistent in his posting. He's got to do this, that. He knows what he's got to do now. But if he never decided, and that's a major thing, if he never decided that he's going to do this and that's who's going to be, it's not going to happen because you need to be proactive to achieve what you're trying to do, right? And so
Mhm.
all these things automatically happen when you have this envision stage because you're trying to do that and then you reverse engineer. The second step is execute. Everything that Justin thinks about podcasting is an assumption. And any advice anyone gives him are also assumptions. We don't know if it's going to work for him or not, just like any business. There's not one the same business. Obviously, there's some great advice that could help, but it's not guaranteed. It depends on the team, depends on the people, and obviously the execution. The reason we say execute in the startup world, the best way to learn is to execute because unless you have feedback or data, they're all assumptions. That's why investors don't look at startups' business plan because it's not true. It's not going to happen, guaranteed. It's going to take a turn somewhere. It's going to be a technology changes. You have the wrong assumption that people are going to want to do this, but actually they want to do this. Um, there's so many businesses that started off one thing and then changed to something else, right? You have to
Mhm.
be able to adapt. And so that's what it allows you to do, have this um, growth mindset, to be able to adapt, just like a startup. Startups that don't adapt, they die. And so as people, we need to do the same thing. So the only way to do that is execute. So when you're trying to get rid of depression, or better yet, when you're trying to talk about physical health, it's the same thing, right? Or even just businesses, right? Um, you have to try. I don't know what's going to work for you. I don't know what's going to work in exercise or diet for you to be in shape. We're all different. Well, same thing with your mental health. There's thousands and thousands of books, thousands and thousands of frameworks, but execution is the first thing you need to do. Try this, or hey, try yoga. I heard supposedly it calms your mind, this, that, and that's why it's good. All this being inspired and thrown into these things, like you're supposed to try it. So people that are depressed and they can't get out of it, like, well, I need to know what the hell you're doing. And the thing is, once you did the envision, you need because you know where you're trying to go. Well, you should know what you're trying to measure. Is it getting better? Is what you're doing working? And have you done it long enough? All this stuff, right? So that's why execution is the second step. The execution in the startup world, we have this thing called a minimum viable product. Basically, what you're trying to do before you bring out your business is figure out what is the most minimum viable thing can I produce that I can get feedback for or get data from. Instead of spending $5 million on it and then realizing, dude, no one cared about that feature. No one
Mhm.
wanted it. Start with a $5,000 and say, hey, let's build this thing and just get feedback and let's see what happens. It's cheap. Let's get there. And then from there, you go to the evaluation stage. Well, that's the hard part about the evaluation stages because you actually have to be really honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, no,
are you
you do.
feeling better? Are you
Yeah.
feeling better? Are you sleeping more? Things like that. But those are at least measurable. The execution, you have to focus on the objectives, not really the goals. So that's why it's very you know different purpose and goal. Again, purpose is infinite, goals are finite. It's very finite. It's supposed to be measurable. When you have a goal, it's and it always ends at a certain point. A goal is not something that I don't know when it's gonna end. Like by 2025, I'm gonna have this. Right? That's a
Yeah.
goal. So anyway, you have to focus on objectives because they're very difficult. I don't know if you're going to achieve your goal, but based on your objectives is more hopefully you end up reaching that goal.
Mhm.
So objectives, for example, for if you're in a uh, physical health, if you go to the gym every day, is that going to help? Things like that. But for me, you need to come up with the minimum viable behaviors. Those are the most minimum things you can do today that's going to help your mental health, or at least from what you envision towards that path. What can you do to that path? Right?
Yeah.
Is it the yoga thing? Is it this? I don't know. Did you execute? All right. Did you evaluate? What happened? Did you measure? What happened? And in the startup world, that's when you decide after you have all the data, do you pivot or do you persevere? Pivot doesn't mean completely change your business or your mission. It just means that wasn't really working. I think it worked a little bit, but not as much as I wanted. So, what happened? So now you pivot, dude. It's not yoga. You're too cool for that. You actually want freaking like hard intensity workouts. Let's
Mhm.
try that. I don't know if it's going to work. Hey, but let's give it a try. And then you evaluate that. And then from there, that's where you evolve. Okay, great. We're gonna persevere. This seems to be working. Let's go all out. It seems to be freaking hiking. All right, let's go all out. Let's go hiking this week. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then now that you know that, you envision again because you go like, all right, what's the future version of me? And and it's a never-ending circle that keeps on happening.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. So and that's the it's a very important to understand that it's like it's always a circle. you know it's really just the things that we're just being taught is so messed up. Like,
Well, I've learned yeah, I've learned a lot, but I have to go back and rewatch it and really tune in the you know what I mean?
yeah,
I have to rewatch it because
yeah,
it's like, whoa, it's
right, I know it's funny because it's very profound for some people, but at the same time, once you understand it, it's like it's just common sense. Like things you were saying before, right? Misdiagnosis. Just
mm,
again, I'm just talking about things that hopefully shifts your perspectives, or at least your
yeah, yeah,
listeners'
yeah, yeah.
perspectives, right? They're always being misdiagnosed. ADHD, for example, right?
That's another
Now,
one.
now, obviously, this is not really a mental health kind of issue that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But this misdiagnosis with ADHD, but no one's going, yeah, but what are you feeding this kid? Or what is he like? So uh, I guess my point is the one of the things I tell people is I call it the puppy theory. Do pit bulls, the
Yep.
dogs?
Yep.
Okay. Do you think they're all like bad and nasty?
No.
Why is
I
that?
because it's to me, and this is my opinion, I think it's
Yeah,
the owner, the trainer. Like
that's right. That's
it's,
right. Now, when people are having mental, problems, they think this and they don't know what's wrong with them or whatever. Why are they this way? That whole idea. We're all just puppies, and we were trained to be the way we were during our upbringing.
Mhm,
It's very influential. Obviously, the kind of friends you had, your environment, your parents is the most important ones, obviously.
mhm,
So you have to understand that you're just a product of that. That's what you grew up with, and that's how come you are who you are. And I tell people when you have problems with your parents and you think that they're bad, it's like, dude, you got to remember they were just puppies too. I don't know how they ended up the way they ended up, but something happened. I
Happened
don't know the
along the way.
story. Right. So once you start to realize that, so that's when I started thinking about this puppy theory, right? Like, yeah, that's like that. It's just the way things are, right?
That's a
And
really good
then,
way of putting it, actually. Like,
yeah, and then so I started realizing and looking at these ADHD, and I'm going like, man, that's like, you know what huskies are? Like
yeah,
Alaskan huskies,
yeah,
right? They're hyper dogs. Everyone knows it. People that are into pets or dogs, they know what kind of breeds are like super hyper and ones are mellow. Like labs are always pretty mellow,
hmm,
but German shepherds, Dobermans, they're like aggressive and hyper kind of dogs.
yeah,
Now, we're not going to give them pills for ADHD. Why not? I think that's what's happening, right? But what do
yeah.
we do with dogs that are hyper? Well, we take them for walks. We make sure that they use their energy and get
Energy
tired.
up. Yep.
So shouldn't we try that with the kids? Like, should we try that with the kids? Like, don't sit there playing video games doing nothing with your body all day. Maybe this
Hmm.
kid needs to play soccer. Maybe he needs to be doing wrestling,
Yeah.
football. Basically, go 90s or Generation X style or even boomers. Like, dude, go outside and play. And that's when I really learned it's not about nature versus nurture. It's how do we nurture nature? The way we nurture huskies, we don't cage them up because that's probably one of the worst things you're going to
Worst
do to a
things you can
hyper
do.
dog.
Hmm.
So so that's how I kind of realized, like, no, is how do we nurture nature? So kids that are hyperactive, this, that, like, dude, you need to do the things that will probably relax this kid. How do we nurture this kind of person? Like, I understand there are some things that are inherent that's in you, but instead of trying to battle that, it's like, dude, let's nurture it instead. It's not one versus the other.
Yeah. Well, we've been here for an hour.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
You know,
realize that already happened.
no, I want to thank you so much, man, because like I said, I've learned so much. I have to actually go back and rewatch it again. Like, you know, I appreciate it. If people are looking out to reach out to you, do you have any socials that they can follow you on or?
Yeah, I'm hoping that listeners would help us with our cause at startday1.org. That's where you can donate and kind of read about what we're trying to do. It's fairly new. We're just basically, like I said, we have a more proactive approach to helping people instead of reactively waiting. And these are one of the ways that we do that is to educate people. And I'm hoping more speakers like yourself would join our cause and do basically what we've done today and help inspire other people along the way proactively rather than going and listening to you when they're suicidal or have depression and all this stuff. So
Well, anytime, man, you're more than welcome to come back on and spread the knowledge. I
I
really
love it.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Sounds good to me. I'll talk to you again soon then.
you bet.